Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Toronto's oldest operating movie theatre could be closing its doors as early as July 1st. The Review Cinema, a fixture in the city's West End for more than a century and a designated heritage site, is facing sudden closure after being unable to secure a new lease with its landlord. Our Vanessa Balantek has more on the fight to save it.
I come here every other day. It's just my thing. How would it affect me? I'm devastated. I'm so devastated. It's not even funny.
Longtime patrons finding out Thursday that their beloved independent movie theater, Review Cinema, could be shutting down. Chair of the board, Grant Oyston, says despite months of negotiating with their landlord, they've been unable to secure a renewal, with just days before their tenancy ends on June 30th.
It's devastating for me, it's devastating for our staff, it's devastating for the community of film lovers that we serve.
Oyston says Review is the longest-standing cinema in the country and has occupied this building since it was constructed around 1911. He's chair of the Review Film Society, which operates the cinema as a non-profit, showcasing over 1,000 screenings each year. Kinder Labatt, a filmmaker, hoped she'd be able to screen one of her own films here one day.
It's these types of places that give up-and-coming filmmakers a platform and a place to screen their films. And the fact that that could be taken away, and there's not many of those theaters like that in Toronto. It's very upsetting.
The board says they're considering all their options to keep the cinema open, such as a possible court injunction. Concession worker Chloe Legault hopes the city can rally together to save the theater, particularly in the wake of the Ontario Science Centre's closure.
These are the places that matter to people. This is where we make memories, and this is where we feel connected to each other. What's the point of having a city like Toronto full of people who love things like cinema and outdoor space if you can't have a place to come together and enjoy it?
The building's landlord, Danny Mullen, told CBC Toronto he doesn't want to close down the theatre, but change how it's operated, citing run-ins with the board and management. Oyston says they've been willing to do whatever it takes to stay, especially since the two parties started off on a good note.
Unfortunately, our sense is that for him this is personal and he is no longer interested in working with us and the organization.
He said the theatre was saved at the 11th hour by Mullen in 2006, who bought the property and continued to lease the building to the Film Society.
He rescued this building 17 years ago, and it's our desire to keep it running and see it continue on.
The cinema's board says they'll do everything that they can to find a way to stay, including, as mentioned, looking at the possible court injunction. In the case that they close, the board says they'll do everything they can to return the money to all the people that have booked so far. Vanessa Balantek, CBC News, Toronto.
Opposition leaders are pushing the Ford government to reverse the closure of the Ontario Science Centre. They say closing it down was about politics, not safety, and that the roof should be fixed. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has that story.
It's a political stunt, but the fence surrounding the Science Centre has become a symbol of the closure. The NDP's Kristen Wong-Tam angry that the signs say private property.
Ontario Science Centre, publicly owned and operated.
Tear down that fence!
Doesn't belong to Doug Ford.
The NDP wants the government to reverse the decision to shut it down.
If the government will not reopen it right now, then we are saying hands off. Don't touch it unless you're going to repair it.
The union representing workers in the building says around 50 food services contractors are receiving layoff notices, despite the promise by Infrastructure Ontario last week of no immediate layoffs.
I think that's an outright lie. When we're looking at no immediate layoffs, those are weasel words anyway. So how long are they planning to keep these folks employed?
The local Liberal MPP says he was supposed to be attending a grade 8 graduation inside the Science Centre today, cancelled with the closure. The Liberal leader says she'd call an investigation if she wins the next election.
Within my first 30 days as Premier, I will appoint a special investigator to conduct a comprehensive investigation into all of Doug Ford and his government's shady backroom deals.
She had few details so far and couldn't speak to the cost.
We're also hearing from more people wanting to save the Science Centre, offering big money donations or support, including the architecture firm that designed the Science Centre.
We're happy to help with the roof repairs. I mean, obviously, we're not going to be bolting things to other things, but we're going to be helping to coordinate and draw and design.
The engineering report that led to the decision to close the Science Centre found around 6% of roof panels at high or critical risk. Experts say small sections could be blocked off and the roof repaired. A local group has been urging people to contact the government and write to the Premier. Its tally now almost 55,000.
The Premier says he listens to everybody. Well, you haven't responded to any of those 55,000, sir. 55,000 from all 124 provincial ridings.
The government hasn't shown any signs of reversing the closure. As for that breach in the fence, security guards put it back in place, now even more tightly closed. Lorenda Redicop, CBC News, Toronto.
City councillors tonight voting overwhelmingly in favor of a motion to ask staff to report back on a feasibility study on a potential city takeover of the Ontario Science Centre. They are now tasked with delivering that report next month to Mayor Olivia Chow's executive committee. Toronto Council also debated other key issues today, including the renaming of Yonge Dundas Square to Sankofa Square and a new encampment strategy. Municipal Affairs reporter Sean Jeffords has more details from City Hall.
Ostensibly, it was just a debate about changing some governance rules for the board that runs Yonge Dundas Square ahead of the renaming to Sankofa Square. But every time this issue comes up at council, opponents push back, and there was a bid to pause the renaming. That failed. But Councillor Amber Morley spoke up very passionately, pushing back against the critics of this renaming process. You know, she says that a lot of the pushback that she's been feeling and other councillors have been feeling has been rooted in prejudice. Let's hear from her.
I do think that all of the hoopla and all of these sort of things that we've been navigating is a clear indication that, very unfortunately for us, racism is one of the most deep-seated and insidious scourges in our society, and it is absolutely alive and well. Black people are Canadians too. Black people pay taxpayer dollars too. So God forbid we put a couple of dollars towards a truth and reconciliation to hold space for community members who have long been disregarded and discarded in violent and traumatic ways.
So, Kelda, the councillors reaffirmed their decision to rename the square Sankofa Square. That will officially take place in August in commemoration of Emancipation Day.
And lastly, Sean, councillors also considering a new strategy to address the growing number of encampments around the city. Tell us about that.
So that decision is just an entrenchment of a policy that's kind of been in practice for a while now. It's effectively an outreach strategy that workers are going into these parks, and they're, talking to people who are setting up encampments there and working with them over time. And it's a move away from enforceable removement from the parks, which the city has been criticized for in the past by the ombudsman and by advocates for the unhoused who are saying, it's just an overreach, and what the city really needs to do is focus on rehousing and really providing more affordable housing in the city. That's part of the work that the city is doing outside of this report, but it's a as I say, a formal adoption of this new process for encampments in the city.
Toronto City Council took a rare step today to remove a police board member they had previously appointed. The vote to remove Naden Spencer comes after a CBC Toronto investigation into her private business and her time leading a prominent charity. Sarah McMillan joins us now with the latest. And Sarah, what exactly happened at City Hall this afternoon?
Well, Kelda, this was unexpected as it was rare. The motion to rescind Spencer's appointment came as what's known as an urgent motion from Councillor Shelley Carroll. The motion recommended to rescind Naden Spencer's position on the Police Service Board effective immediately, as well as replace her with a new appointee. That motion passed without debate this afternoon with a vote of 22-1. To get a sense of just how rare a move like this is, we spoke this afternoon with former board chair Alec Mukherjee.
I cannot recall a situation where the city council has ended the term of its appointee before the completion. So to me, and I may be wrong, this is the first time where the Toronto City Council has taken this action.
And Sarah, this comes after a CBC investigation. Remind us what you discovered about Spencer's private business.
Yeah, so earlier this month, we reported on Spencer's private marketing company, Brand EQ. Our investigation found that for years, Spencer appeared to misrepresent the scale of her business by using stock images to represent supposed senior leadership officials, as well as photos of real people who are actually not associated with the company. Now, Spencer categorically denied fabricating employees, but she declined to provide any evidence they exist, citing employee confidentiality.
And Sarah, that investigation came on the heels of another CBC Toronto investigation that involves Spencer.
Yeah, so the previous investigation last month had to do with the Black Business and Professional Association. That's a prominent charity that Spencer ran at first as board president and later as CEO for a number of years. And our investigation revealed that Spencer's company, Brand EQ, received more than $1 million in contracts from the charity while she was at the helm. Now, Spencer says she was not involved in the decisions to award the contracts and that they were approved by the charity's board. However, the situation raised concern from some members of the charity.
All right, thank you so much, Sarah. That's CBC's Sarah McMillan. And we're hearing from Naden Spencer tonight. In a statement, she says, in part, I'm deeply disappointed in Council's decision, which follows months of unfounded and false allegations. Their decision is reckless and without reason. While today's decision was uninformed, I am confident the facts will speak for themselves in due course. Welcome back. A 23-year-old man is dead after a shooting in North York. Police releasing this photo of the victim right there, Marcel Bryan, tonight. The shooting happened outside of a condo building on Cherokee Boulevard near Victoria Park and Finch at around 3 this morning. Police confirmed that several witnesses reported seeing 2 suspects shooting at the man. Investigators believe the shooting was targeted. And Toronto police say gun violence in our city is way up this year compared to last year. To combat the issue, police have increased their presence in some of the city's most vulnerable areas. Greg Ross has more.
Toronto police say there has been a dramatic increase in shootings across the city this year.
In 2024, shooting events have increased by nearly 74% compared to this time in 2023.
The majority of these instances are simply gun discharges where there are no injuries, but there have already been 24 gun-related deaths in 2024. Police say they have strategically moved resources to increase their presence in areas that are most affected by gun violence.
This year, Toronto police have made 494 arrests for firearm offenses. We've laid 2,242 charges, and we have seized 363 crime guns.
Police say 85 to 90% of the guns are being smuggled in from the U.S. Another disturbing trend is the fact that many of the accused are minors. Just last week, a 14-year-old was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for a shooting at North Albion Collegiate.
We're finding, young people more and more involved in this, and I think, to what I alluded before, it's a turf warfare, and they're recruiting and engaging kids.
Police say one of the biggest contributors to gun violence across the city is the tow truck industry. They say 12% of gun crimes so far this year can be directly connected to tow trucks.
Since January 1st, 2024, there have been 26 tow truck-related shootings and discharges.
They've seen many other acts of violence related to tow trucks as well, including 9 tow truck arsons just in April and May.
Towing conflicts in the GTA have historically been about territorial disputes and rivalries.
As a result, TPS has formed a task force that will focus on finding those responsible.
To combat the violence, our Organized Crime Enforcement Section is leading a tow truck task force to ensure that all information intelligence is being shared across the service. This proactive preventative response also ensures that officers are equipped with the latest updates when engaging with community and businesses.
Police say that these acts of violence are being carried out by a small segment of the towing industry and is not representative of most owners and operators. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
An internationally renowned artist says he's out millions in stolen paintings to Arash Masagi, an alleged fraudster killed last week in a triple shooting. At the time of his death, Masagi was involved in 24 lawsuits against him, involving more than $90 million, including from the man who killed him. Angelina King has this story.
Internationally renowned artist Alijanpour has paintings on display around the world. Here, they've been exhibited at the Ontario Legislature and Royal Ontario Museum. We spoke with Alijanpour through a translator.
My work is more spiritual.
But lately, he's been painting more generic work, like this, and selling it for less, desperately trying to make money to pay off debt and lawyer fees. He says he's out nearly $2.5 million in money and paintings after his dealings with notorious alleged fraudster Arash Masagi. Over the past 2 decades in Ontario, around 24 lawsuits have been filed against Masagi, totaling more than $90 million. All the claims haven't been proven in court. But so far, 2 of Masagi's many lawyers have lost their licenses after being accused of helping facilitate the alleged frauds. And he was charged with fraud in 2 large investigations unrelated to the artist, but was never convicted. His charges from the more recent investigation were dropped, the Crown citing the prosecution was no longer in the public interest. Masagi was shot and killed earlier this month by a man who then killed himself. The gunman's widow said that's because he was distraught after losing $1.2 million in a mortgage investment scheme allegedly run by Masagi. She shared a note he left that said, "Stop these criminals from destroying people's lives." Alijanpour feels he's one of them.
I went through so much distress and stress.
A lawsuit Alijanpour filed against Masagi says he slowly built Alijanpour's trust by commissioning a $50,000 painting. Alijanpour says Masagi paid for it and a few others. The suit claims Masagi commissioned more than $300,000 worth of other paintings he didn't pay for.
$100,000 not paid.
Alijanpour claims Masagi also told him he wanted to buy his collection of completed paintings and sell them for a profit to a museum in England. According to the lawsuit, Masagi stole them instead. Alijanpour's life's work valued at $1.2 million.
But I really want to take my painting back. I like those paintings same as my own children.
In a statement of defense, Masagi denied the allegations. Alijanpour is also accusing Masagi of orchestrating a scheme to obtain 2 mortgages in his name that he didn't know about. Writ documents show Alijanpour owes $1.2 million for one of them.
All my credit has been ruined. I lost so much.
So did many others, and the system is partly to blame, says this lawyer.
The story of Mr. Masagi, it is corrosive to the rule of law. It undermines public confidence in the administration of justice.
Peter Smiley is Alijanpour's former lawyer and has represented around 10 alleged victims of Masagi.
He was able to fund his litigations with the substantial monies that he defrauded from his victims.
Alijanpour filed a report about Masagi to Toronto police and a complaint to the Law Society about another lawyer he says helped Masagi carry out the mortgage scheme, but nothing came of either.
Who's responsible? Is it judge? Is it law? Is it court? Is it police?
For Smiley,
Mr. Masagi's career of fraud, which ultimately culminated in the tragedy that took place last Monday in Don Mills, was the almost inevitable result of decades of institutional inaction.
alleged victims are hoping they'll be able to recover some money from Masagi's estate now that he has died. But lawyer Peter Smiley says it'll take a lot to untangle that web he calls Masagi's estate and has asked for the court's assistance with that. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, Chris is back with one final check on the forecast, and the long weekend so close and looking pretty good.
All in all, not too bad at all. We're not going to see the high heat like we saw last week. In fact, today was the coolest day we've had in almost 2 weeks. Normal daytime high for this time of year is around 25. Record high for today is 35 degrees, set back in 1941. Obviously, it wasn't a record-breaking day. Daytime highs today stalled in the low 20s in most areas. Sarnia peaked at 18, 21 in Kitchener, 22 in the city, and And once again, that normal daytime high is around 25. And obviously, humidity wasn't big deal. It wasn't a big deal. Obviously, it felt basically on par with the actual temperature itself. Active weather-wise, not much to point out, at least for now. That might change Friday night and into Saturday. Not a washout day, but once again, you're going to need your umbrella from time to time. It basically starts to move in Friday night and into early Saturday morning. We're going to have wave after wave of passing showers. Could be steady at times. There will be a slight risk of a few embedded thunderstorms as well. They would be non-severe in nature, but they still could produce some slightly heavier downpours, at least briefly. Once we get through Friday late afternoon and evening, that's when conditions start to dry out. If you're heading out of the city, maybe you're heading up to Muskoka, it looks like a similar forecast. Some showers on Saturday, dropping down towards 19 for Sunday, 23 for Monday. Similar story through the Kawartha Lakes as well. So it looks like Saturday will be the day that you might have to have a plan B, or at least have your umbrella handy from time to time. Once again, that normal daytime high is around 25. We're going to stall at around 22 Friday afternoon, dropping down towards 18 for the overnight. And that is a little bit above normal for this time of year for an overnight low. That will translate to temperatures in the mid-20s for Saturday, probably going to feel closer to 30. Once again, umbrella-worthy day, but not a washout. Into Sunday, some lingering cloud will, well, once again linger. But despite that fact, it looks like we will stay dry across the GTA. Once we get into Monday, of course, July 1st, looks like a gorgeous day to get out and enjoy with temperatures near normal. It looks like sunshine from start to finish. By Tuesday, we start to see increasing clouds, and that will lead us into the risk of showers Tuesday night and into Wednesday. It doesn't look like that will continue to be the case for Thursday and Friday and into the following weekend, at least for now. So if you're heading out outside of the city, maybe you're taking next week off, it's going to be a great week to get out and enjoy. Obviously, the kids are done school tomorrow, so get out there and enjoy that first full week of schoolless days, I should say. Back to you.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks so much, Chris.
You got it.